Shalawam, giving all praises to the Heavenly Father Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shai, Bahashem, Racha, Kwadash. Double honors unto the apostles and the elders of Great Millstone who taught me this truth and rule well. Peace, love, and salutations to the hopeful elect, scattered across the four corners of the earth. This is your brother Khalak, out of the Great Millstone Atlanta camp, coming to you again with another Lord willing edifying video. In this lesson, we will be dealing with Amalek, which are your so-called JOO-ish people. As we know, ish means pertaining to or like something, but they are not the real Jews. They are imposters, and the Lord has allowed them this period of time to rule as a fulfillment of the blessing given to Esau in Genesis chapter 27. The so-called JOO-ish people today are actually Amalekites. Amalek was the grandson of Esau. The same way there are different tribes within the nation of Israel, there are also different tribes within the nation of Edom. And within Edom, Amalek is the head. As we see today that the so-called white man runs the world, but within that, the JOO-ish people have even more control. This is the book of Genesis chapter 36 and 9. And these are the generations of Esau, the father of the Edomites in Mount Seir. Skipping down to verse 12, it says, "And Timnah was concubine to Eliphaz, Esau's son, and she bare to Eliphaz Amalek. These were the sons of Adah, Esau's wife." So this is the account that lets us know Amalek was the grandson of Esau. These Amalekites are who primarily make up the population of the secular state of Israel we see today. The state of Israel in the so-called Middle East was established in 1948. All it really is an extension of Edomite colonization. The Balfour Declaration is what established this secular state in 1948. Now, mainstream Christianity and media will say that this fulfilled biblical prophecy of the Israelites returning back to the land. But in this video, we are going to prove that those so-called JOO-ish people are not the real Israelites, and that 1948 did not fulfill biblical prophecy, Lord willing. This is the book of Jeremiah, chapter 23 and 5. "Behold, the days come, saith the Lord Yahweh, that I will raise unto David a righteous branch, and a king shall reign and prosper, and shall execute judgment and justice in the earth. In his days Judah shall be saved, and Israel shall dwell safely. And this is his name whereby he shall be called, the Lord our righteousness." So this is a future prophecy of the kingdom of heaven. This king in verse 5 is speaking of Yahushua, which we know has not returned yet. Then in verse 6 it says, "Judah and Israel shall dwell safely." Now Judah is the southern kingdom, which today is the so-called Negroes. Israel is the northern kingdom, which today is the so-called Latinos and Native Americans. Here it's saying that both of them will dwell safely. This lets us know that the Ish people couldn't have fulfilled biblical prophecy because they only identify as the Jews, which comes from the word Judah. As for the other tribes, they are nowhere to be found. They may say that the Ethiopians are some of the lost tribes, but the Ethiopians are Cushites from the line of Ham. They are not Israelites either. Reading on in verse 7, it says, "Therefore, behold, the days come, saith the Lord Yahweh, that they shall no more say, the Lord Yahweh liveth, which brought up the children of Israel out of the land of Egypt. But the Lord Yahweh liveth, which brought up and which led the seed of the house of Israel out of the north country, and from all countries whither I had driven them, and they shall dwell in their own land." So here's some more of the prophecy, letting you know that the Ish people in the land now are not the true people. Now we all know the story of the Israelites being delivered from the first Egypt. But in verse 8, the Lord is saying that he's going to do something bigger than that, and we will no longer talk about the first deliverance. In the future, the Lord is going to gather all of the Israelites that were scattered amongst all the nations of the earth and bring them back into their own land. That has not happened yet. According to the JOO-ish people, this happened in 1948. But if that was a fulfillment of biblical prophecy, why don't we talk about it more than the deliverance from the first Egypt? Because it hasn't happened yet. This is the book of Matthew chapter 24 and 30. "And then shall appear the sign of the Son of Man in heaven, and then shall all the tribes of the earth mourn, and they shall see the Son of Man coming in the clouds of heaven with power and great glory. And he shall send his angels with a great sound of a trumpet, and they shall gather together his elect from the four winds, from one end of heaven to the other. So this is Yahushua himself letting us know how he's going to return. It says in verse 30, he is coming in the clouds, which we know are the chariots, so-called UFOs. Then in verse 31, it says his angels will gather his elect from the four winds. This did not happen to the JOO-ish people. They were placed in that land through a Balfour Declaration. But here, the Lord is going to gather the elect of the real Israelites with chariots and return them to their own land himself. This is the book of Hebrews chapter 8 and 8. Speaking of the new covenant, it says, for finding fault with them, he saith, behold, the days come, saith the Lord, when I will make a new covenant with the house of Israel and with the house of Judah. Not according to the covenant that I made with their fathers in the day when I took them by the hand to lead them out of the land of Egypt, because they continued not in my covenant, and I regarded them not, saith the Lord. For this is the covenant that I will make with the house of Israel after those days, saith the Lord. I will put my laws into their mind, and write them in their hearts. And I will be to them a God, and they shall be to me a people. And they shall not teach every man his neighbor, and every man his brother, saying, know the Lord, for all shall know me, from the least to the greatest. So this is the new covenant, which we are not fully in right now. In verse 8, it says, with the house of Israel and with the house of Judah, letting you know it will be with the northern and southern kingdom of Israel, all 12 tribes. Verse 10 speaks of those new immortal bodies that the Lord will give to the nation of Israel, with the law, statutes, and commandments written inside them, making us incapable of sin. Then in verse 11, it says, no man will teach his neighbor to know the Lord. That is because we will be programmed in righteousness. Now with the JOO-ish people, this clearly has not happened yet. They definitely don't have the law, statutes, and commandments written inside them, because why would one of the biggest gay parades in the world be held in that land right now? And also, why are they still teaching, when according to the prophecy, no man will teach his neighbor to know the Lord? This is the book of Isaiah chapter 2 and 2, speaking of the kingdom of heaven. It reads, and it shall come to pass in the last days that the mountain of the Lord Yahweh's house shall be established in the top of the mountains, and shall be exalted above the hills, and all nations shall flow unto it. And many people shall go and say, come ye, and let us go up to the mountain of the Lord Yahweh, to the house of the power of Jacob, and he will teach us of his ways, and we will walk in his paths. For out of Zion shall go forth the law, and the word of the Lord Yahweh from Jerusalem. And he shall judge among the nations, and shall rebuke many, and they shall beat their swords into plowshares, and their spears into pruning hooks. Nation shall not lift up sword against nation, neither shall they learn war any more. So this prophecy is speaking of the kingdom of heaven, which according to the JOO-ish people, we are in right now. Because the return of the Israelites to the Holy Land is synonymous with the kingdom of heaven being established. So if the JOO-ish people were the real Israelites, this prophecy would be fulfilled, but it is not. It says in verse 2 that all nations will flow unto the kingdom. Right now, all nations are not flowing to the state of Israel. Verse 3 says many will come to the mountain of the Lord to learn of his ways. That is not happening now with the secular state of Israel. Then in verse 4 it says the nations will not learn war anymore. That clearly has not happened yet, because ever since the state of Israel was established in 1948, there has been constant war since then. This is the book of Ezekiel chapter 36 and 1. Also, thou son of man, prophesy unto the mountains of Israel, and say, ye mountains of Israel, hear the word of the Lord Yahweh. Thus saith the Lord Yahweh power, because the enemy hath said against you, aha, even the ancient places are ours in possession. Skipping down to verse 5, it says, therefore thus saith the Lord Yahweh power, surely in the fire of my jealousy have I spoken against the residue of the heathen, and against all Idumea, which have appointed my land into their possession, with the joy of all their heart, with despiteful minds, to cast it out for a prey. So this is speaking of the heathen possessing the Holy Land. As it says in verse 2, because the enemy hath said against you, Aha, even the ancient high places are ours in possession. Then in verse 5, it goes on to specify who that would be. It says against all Idumea, which Idumea is Greek for Edom. This lets us know that those JOO-ish people in the land right now are Edomites, and more specifically, Amalekites. This is the book of Jeremiah, chapter 50 and 45. Therefore hear ye the counsel of the Lord Yahweh, that he hath taken against Babylon, and his purposes that he hath purposed against the land of the Chaldeans. Surely the least of the flock shall draw them out. Surely he shall make their habitation desolate with them. So this is a prophecy concerning the destruction of Babylon the Great, which is America. Here it's saying that the least of the flock will draw them out. As we know, Babylon is ran by the Edomites. That is according to Psalms chapter 137, verses 7 and 8. And the least of the flock spoken of here are the Amalekites. This is what's happening now as the JOO-ish people are drawing America out to war. This is what will get all the other nations to nuke America. In the book of Isaiah chapter 19 and verse 2, the Lord said he would set Egyptian against Egyptian. That can be observed now with so-called white Christianity and Judaism. This is the book of Deuteronomy chapter 25 and 17. Remember what Amalek did unto thee by the way, when ye were come forth out of Egypt, how he met thee by the way, and smote the hindmost of thee, even all that were feeble behind thee, when thou wast faint and weary, and he feared not God. As we know, all of the Edomites will go through 1,000 years of slavery and then will be eradicated, but within that, Amalek will definitely get it. Because even within the tribes of Esau, Amalek hates Israel the most. Even in times past, they were always a thorn in the side of Israel. As it says in verse 18, that when we were delivered from Egypt, Amalek came and terrorized the weak and feeble of us. Even now, the Amalekites are a thorn in the side of the Israelites. All of the rich elite banking families are Amalek. All of your major CEOs are Amalek. Even all of the mainstream media is controlled by Amalek. Your black entertainment has Amalek behind it. That is why there is so much degeneracy forced on the Israelites through sellouts of our own nation. But in the end, Israel will have the victory over Amalek. So with that, I'm going to end it by giving all praises to the Heavenly Father, Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shai, Bahashem, Rakha, Quadash. Once again, double honors unto the apostles and the elders of Great Millstone. Peace, love, and salutations to the hopeful elect. Shalawam.